Hey folks, welcome to my live stream. Today we will be streaming through the Claude uh, Fable 5 that came on. We will be reviewing it, and the live stream at Code with Claude 2026 at Tokyo is taking place in Japan right now. So we will be looking at that too. Without further ado, let's get started.
The model, the myth, the legend, Mythos from Anthropic has finally dropped. Well, baby Mythos. We're calling it Fable 5, and this new model is crushing benchmarks, but the question is, can it crush my backlog? I got early access to the model, and of course, I have my own opinions on where it does really well, where it needs a little work, and the question on everyone's mind, does it live up to the terrifying marketing hype? Let's get to it. Okay, let's talk about what Anthropic is telling us about this model, and then we'll get into what I think about it. So this is Claude Fable 5, the first Mythos class intelligence model to reach GA. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, Anthropic has been marketing / scaring / warning us about the unbelievable capabilities of Mythos, and it is finally here. Now, they had originally been rolling this out with a couple select companies. I got early access to test what I thought of the model, but you have to know this is not Mythos, capital M, big Mythos. This is baby Mythos. This is Fable. And it's going to have some guardrails on it, in particular around cybersecurity exercises and biology exercises. Now, good news, your girl's working on PRDs. She's shipping SaaS. She's not working on biology quite yet, although give me a little time and some time to experiment. Maybe I'll get there. So this is really going to be focused on what the everyday user, what the everyday software engineer is going to think about when they're using this model. Although I did run into some things that I suspect are a result of the tuning and training of this particular model to be extra safe. Now, quick, it's not cheap. It's $10 per input token and $50 per output token. It's going to be a new tier above Opus. And so if you're going to use this model, you're going to pay the price. So what is Anthropic saying? Basically, it's a completely new model class. So we had Sonnet, we had Opus, and now we have Mythos, the first of which is Fable 5. It's completely state-of-the-art. It is exceeding every benchmark they tested by a significant amount. This 80% on SweetEdge Pro, you'll look at that compared to some of the more recent models that have come out. Very, very good benchmark performance. And then they're saying it's really good for long, complex tasks. Now, what are some things that earlier models couldn't do that they are saying now that Fable 5 can do? It's very autonomous, including running days-long asynchronous tasks. It's really an engineer's engineer. And that's some of the downside I experienced with this model. I'm going to show you a very specific example of where you don't want an engineer doing your work with an engineer's point of view. Proactive. It's very good at vision, exceptionally good at vision. This is a place where I actually really loved the model. And you know me, I'm pretty critical of models, but I did see a step ahead of vision. So that's something we're going to dive into. And then effort, it works hard. It builds harder. It verifies more. It's built for ambitious work. Now, guess what it also can do? It can consume those tokens. So Anthropic has said it consumes rate limits and tokens at about 2x the rate of other models. So again, this is a big boy model and it's going to consume tokens. And some of the things that it's good at, and even some things that they have done in the harness, seem like they're intentionally or not token consumers. So we're going to keep an eye out on cost and an eye out on efficiency when using this model. Again, talking about long-running tasks, Fable 5 is supposed to be able to run for days. So doing long-running planning, being able to spin up sub-agents, and I show a little bit about dynamic workflows, which are, different architectures of sub-agents and holding multi-day sessions. Now, I have done probably days-long sessions with other models. I didn't have Fable for many days, so I cannot verify that it ran for days. I did get it to run, however, for several hours on some tasks that may or may not have merited that several-hour effort, but it definitely seems like it has both the harness and the intelligence capability to run for a very long time, if that's appropriate for your task. Now, here's your pros and here's your cons. They explicitly say that Fable works like a seasoned engineer. Unfortunately, if you have worked with a seasoned engineer, you know there's good to this and you know there's bad to this. So it is very complete in its investigation. It's definitely going to go search out all the corners. It's definitely going to think about how it can be 120% sure that it's shipping the right thing. But guess what? That's not always in service of launching. And that's honestly not always in service of building a great product. So while you can give it a goal and it will be very autonomous and it will be very thorough, honestly, sometimes you want like a slightly less thorough engineer. Product manager talking, even engineer talking, sometimes you want it to be a little bit dumber. We'll talk about some of the prompting techniques it says and when to use this model, but it's just something to think about when you're working with any high intelligence model is how much intelligence does the task actually take. Now, as I said before, it is token intensive by design, and I did most of my tasks on extra high, and so it was like token burning on token burning. And so they say that high is probably the sweet spot for most work. I used extra high just because I don't want anybody in the comments saying, Claire, you picked high for this task and it should have been extra high and you would have had better experience. I used extra high. I used all of the brains at Fable. But again, it is very, very token intensive. And my question for any of these models, this is not an Anthropic model question, this is not a Fable question, is does this token intensity actually output the right results? And that's a place where I'm just not 100% sure. But again, as us humans in the loop, we're going to have to be much more intelligent about where to put what model and where to use what reasoning and what effort level to match what we're doing. And again, I think that the untrained of us will say, oh, well, I have this Fable model. I should use it. It's better than anything. And honestly, I still think there's a place for good old Sonnet. I think there's a place for Opus, and I think there's a place for other models in the ecosystem. Now, there are safeguards in this model. And so this was one of the first things that Anthropic told me testing the model. And this is one of the headlines that they're making in the release, which is there are specific classifiers in this model for cybersecurity, biology, chemistry, and distillation. Basically, they don't want anybody doing bad stuff in those categories in particular with this very intelligent model. What's nice about how they've implemented this, however, is they have this new fallback concept. And so if you get classified into one of these categories, instead of saying like, do not pass go, you may no longer Fable, it just falls you back to Opus 4.8. This is also a capability in the API now where you can do this graceful fallback to 4.8 if you're using a Mythos class model. They also have a 30-day retention policy, use only to catch misuse, and it's not used to train Claude. So while it's still not training Claude, they do want to check the use of this model because they have been and will forever be very cautious about us normies using their intelligent models. And just, for context, 95% of sessions on this model did not hit a fallback. I don't believe I hit a fallback, but again, I'm not doing anything in cybersecurity, biology, or chemistry, at least yet. Okay, so this is the question. Is this or is this not Mythos? It is Mythos. Fable has the safeguards. Mythos does not. Fable, all us normies can have in general availability. Mythos is still restricted to these Project Glasswing partners, some of these enterprise level partners that are really checking it against cybersecurity use cases. I would suspect that at some point we get some access to a Fable 5 point whatever, or that the Project Glasswing class opens up. But for now, we get Fable, Project Glasswing, or these pre-selected companies get Mythos, but they are all fundamentally the same underlying model. A couple product things that are also launching today, along with the Fable 5 model, Claude Managed Agents are going to public beta. If you haven't paid attention, this is Anthropic's hosted harness, hosted sandbox for running long-running agentic work. I'm still trying to figure out what a good use case for Claude Managed Agents is. I will get there, but Fable ships out of the box in Claude Managed Agents. There's also a new advisor strategy where you can use Fable 5 as a senior advisor and use cheaper models as an execution layer. A lot of people are doing this with Opus and Sonnet. And so this is going to work today in the API and in Claude Code and is a strategy you can use. And then, as I mentioned, this fallback API where you can put an optional parameter on the messages API that allows you to continue block requests by using 4.8 at Opus pricing. Okay, as we said, crushing benchmarks. Look at this. Fable 5 compared to Opus 4.8, GPT-5.5, and Gemini 3.1 Pro. Significant increase in SWE-bench Pro benchmark, very far ahead of these other models. And while I wasn't testing the most advanced use cases, I didn't find something that technically it failed at. So I think these benchmarks are really going to hold. And these benchmarks have outperformed across the board. So this is Anthropic's state-of-the-art model. Okay, so enough about what they say. Let's talk about what I say. What is it actually like to use? So I ran Fable 5 on a bunch of different work, and I want to give you my feedback on where I thought it did well, where it needed a little bit of work, and where I was really surprised. As I said before, it's really good at vision. And where is it good at vision that really impressed me? It's really good at document formatting. So this is super simple, but we've been doing these handwriting documents for my 7-year-old based on classic texts and classic poems. And on the right is Opus 4.8, and on the left is Mythos 5. And it looks so silly, but I really do think Mythos 5 did a much better job of a second grade layout for a handwriting sheet. There's just like the right spacing. It's very clear to read. There's enough white space. I think on the one on the right, it's just very dense. And even the lines themselves are sort of hard to tell. Do you write above? Do you write below? So I do think that PDF formatting documents, I tested this against a bunch of different models. Mythos 5 really did a good job. So very simple eval for me, but a very, very good one. Now, here's the problem, though. The writing is nearly unreadable. So if you're thinking about Mythos for prose, for spec writing, for PRDs, unfortunately, it's an engineer. And what's the problem with engineers? They just really get wrapped around the axle on details. And this is a real struggle with these more intelligent frontier models is they're like too smart. And so it's just very, very hard to parse what they're saying. And I'm going to show an example of this in actually Claude Code. So I have this concept of a product graph that I'm working on for ChatPRD. It's actually a fairly complex open source project. And I had Fable 5 go through that and actually do like an adversarial review of my requirements to try to figure out where there were internal consistencies in the logic. And it gave me this markdown document that looks very long and intelligent. But if you actually go through it, it's just really hard to parse. There's like internal references. It's very detailed, but not in a way where you can zoom out. There are these big blocks of paragraphs. Like look at this. It is just really hard to see the forest for the trees in this particular model. And I saw this sort of like over and over again, working on it with specs, is it was very complete, but nearly imparsable. And that's a real challenge when working with these very, very high intelligence models. Again, I would actually suggest pulling back to maybe a Sonnet or Opus model for specs, and then looking at Fable as an orchestrator of execution where that detail really matters, but you don't have to read it. The other thing that shocked me was how actually legitimately terribly bad it was at design, or at least at one-shot design. And so I asked Fable to design a skills registry, and man alive, did it do a very poor job. I mean, I'm not even talking like AI slop bad, is fundamentally terrible design. Gray, black, red, simple outlines, just really, really terrible. Now, the Anthropic team suggested that I just needed to be a little bit more detailed in my prompting. I've never had to do this before in, I would say, the last year of models in terms of front end. But even when I prompted it, it was still just not very impressive design. I think there's this real balance between design slop and specificity and just shipping like terrible design. I'm not sure what about Fable 5 resulted in this. I'm gonna have to keep testing it as it rolls out today. but this was a real disappointment in terms of design. So again, you might want to toss an Opus in the mix instead of relying on Fable for design. It's really conservative on execution. So when I was trying to do that ambitious days-long work, I took a spec and I said, can you ship the V0 of this, the MVP? I said, enough that a customer could get value. And the MVP, they just really took minimal to heart. It was like very, very narrow, not actually that useful. And I'm curious if this comes from some of the safeguards on this model. And it's been a challenge I've seen since the kind of later Opus models is they're not super ambitious. And so again, you'll have to think about how to prompt this to get that long-running outcome paired with the right product ambition. And then I really doubled down trying to test these Claude dynamic workflows and these sub-agent designs, trying to see if this would really add value. And the multi-agent capability is definitely there. And I definitely had some successful multi-agent runs kicked off in Fable, but I also ran into a lot of stalls and errors in using multi-agent orchestration. Now, I made the mistake. I walked away from my laptop and came back to these sub-agents that had stalled after about 3 hours. And so like egg on my face, but I really want to see how technically the Claude Code model holds up to the promise of multi-agent orchestration. I had some successes and some bugs. I think this is a Claude Code issue, not necessarily a model issue, although with this promise of long-running days-long prompts, you really got to deliver technically on the outcome. So what's my takeaway? I would hand it hard problems, of course not cybersecurity, bio, or chemistry problems, but hard technical problems where being extremely detailed matters, long horizon work. I would also hand it vision problems where you really want something to look good or you want it to parse PDFs or other documents. It's done exceptionally well there. I was actually really surprised. I probably wouldn't hand it my front-end work, or I definitely wouldn't hand it my front-end work, and I definitely wouldn't hand it strategy or spec work. I think it overthinks things. I think its prose is merely imparsible, and so maybe I'll test it again with effort level lower on sort of prose and spec writing, but it wasn't it for that. That being said, I'm not a hater on this model. It definitely has a place in your stack. I'm going to test it. If you want to learn more, definitely look up the prompting guide for Fable. It's going to probably repeat a lot of what I said. Hand it your hardest problems, what this model is good for and what it's not, and how to get a good outcome. That being said, Mythos is here. I cannot wait to hear what you build, what you overbuild, and what you make ugly with this new model. Thanks for joining How I AI. Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed the show, please like and subscribe here on YouTube, or even better, leave us a comment with your thoughts. You can also find this podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please consider leaving us a rating and review, which will help others find the show. You can see all our episodes and learn more about the show at howiaipod.com. See you next time. It's here. At howiai.
There are only few people who have got access to Fable right now. She is one of the one. Okay, then now let's get to the code with Claude 2026. Let's watch it on YouTube.
Please welcome to the stage, Head of Engineering for the Claude Platform at Anthropic, Caitlin Less. 스테이지에 요코소, Anthropic Claude 플랫폼 엔지니어링責任者, Caitlin Less様.
Good morning, Tokyo. This is the first time that we brought Code with Claude to Japan, and we're grateful to spend the next couple of days with all of you. This morning, we'll be talking about our models, our platform, and our products. But before we get into it, I want to start by sharing that just a few hours ago, we released the 5th generation of Claude models, Claude Mythos 5 and Claude Fable 5. These are our 2 most capable models ever. Diane, our head of product for research, will join us shortly to share a lot more about why these models are so special. I lead engineering for the Claude platform. The platform gives developers the tools they need to build systems on top of Claude to harness its intelligence. This is the highest leverage way for us to help solve the world's most important problems, and this is why Anthropic is a platform company. Developers all over the world, many in this room today, produce far more value on top of the platform than we could ever build on our own. So let's start with what I'm seeing from our customers lately. There's an incredible volume of powerful applications shipping right now, and a lot of it is coming from right here in Japan. Rakuten is one of our favorite customers to work with. Their team went from using Claude Code to accelerate development, to building on Claude Managed Agents to power custom internal agents across engineering, product, sales, and finance. One of their product managers coordinates teams of agents exactly the same way a leader manages teams of humans. Now, they're shipping major releases every 2 weeks instead of only once per quarter. And it's the same across Asia Pacific. Another great customer is Canva, the Australian design platform that hundreds of millions of people use. Most of their users have never written a line of code. But with the help of Claude, Canva code changes all of this. Within a design, you can just ask for something interactive, like a map, a calculator, or a widget, and Claude builds it into a working mini app ready to drop right into your page. All around the world, people are building new systems and applications powered by Claude that nobody could build before. And we're all feeling this shift. The landscape is changing faster than ever. Things that weren't possible yesterday have become possible today. We're on a mission to keep raising the ceiling of what's possible to build by making models that are increasingly capable. A couple of years ago, the frontier of model development was just the ability to draft a really simple commit message. And then 1 year ago, we were standing on stage at our first ever Code with Claude event. Opus 4 was the headline, and it was mind-blowing at the time that Claude could build an entire feature on its own. And then 6 months ago, agents were able to run overnight to complete long-running and autonomous tasks. 2 months ago, Mythos read the entire OpenBSD source tree and found a 27-year-old vulnerability that had slipped past human reviews and static analysis for almost 3 decades. And earlier today, we released Mythos 5 and Fable 5. Fable 5 is state-of-the-art on nearly all tested benchmarks of AI capability showing exceptional performance in software engineering, knowledge work, scientific, research, vision, and more. These jumps keep getting bigger, but the time intervals keep getting shorter. But even though these model capabilities are improving on this exponential, most business capabilities are still on a linear. So there's this growing gap between what AI can do and what it's actually doing for people. Closing that gap is our collective opportunity. And that is why we built the Claude platform. It gives developers the tools they need to build more powerful agents. Year over year, API volume is up nearly 17 times on the platform. And we've been shipping a lot, and there's a lot more on the way. Over the next couple of days, we'll share where we're headed, and we'll learn more about what you're building. Our goal is to make our models, our platform, and our products work better for all of you. So this morning, we'll dive into each. First, Diane will talk about our models. She'll share more about our latest frontier models, Mythos 5 and Fable 5, and what's coming next. Next, Angela and I will walk you through how you can build and deploy agents at scale on the Claude platform using Claude Managed Agents. And today, we're excited to share that we're shipping brand new Claude Managed Agents features. You can now schedule deployments to have your agents run on whatever cadence that you need. And you can store environment variables in vaults, so your agents can securely make authenticated API requests without giving them access to the keys. Finally, Kat will walk you through the latest in Claude Code, where the average developer is now spending 20 hours per week with Claude. She'll cover the latest features like the new agent view and dynamic workflows. And all of this comes back to you and what you're going to build. Because most people will never integrate with the Claude API themselves. They'll never open a terminal and type Claude. They'll experience AI through something that one of you built on the Claude platform. Like a salesperson walking into a high-stakes meeting fully briefed by Slack agents. Or a lawyer getting a brief out the door faster than ever with Legora. Or a developer using any one of the world's best coding agents. This is why we're a platform company. Every day, I'm amazed by the collective impact that you're all having, building solutions to the world's most important problems. So thank you for being here, for partnering with us, and for showing us what's possible. Arigatou gozaimasu. Please welcome Diane from our research product team for your first deep look at our newest models.
Please welcome to the stage, Head of Product Management for Research, Diane Penn. ステージへようこそ、Anthropic Research Product Management 責任者、Diane Penn 様。
Hi, good morning, Tokyo. I'm Diane, and I joined Anthropic in 2023, and I've been a part of every version of Claude since Claude 2. For those of you who are counting, that's bringing 21 versions of Claude across Haiku, Sonnet, Opus, and now Fable and Mythos to end users and developers like you. Our most recent launch happened just a few hours ago. We released Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos 5, the first generation of our fifth model. Fable 5 is the most capable model we've ever made generally available. It's based on the same foundations as Mythos 5. These models are already accelerating our work at Anthropic. And for developers like you, Claude will be able to be stronger, and your starting line will move forward. We talk a lot about the exponential at Anthropic, but what does this actually mean? For us, as model intelligence increases, we believe the value of use cases it creates increases exponentially. For example, agentic coding that many of you are using today is far more valuable than simple autocomplete from just a few years ago. And we are already seeing this with Fable 5. Let's start with coding, because we believe that's where most of you will feel the magic first. Fable 5 performs the highest on Sweetbench Pro, but the benchmark itself undersells the story. The longer and the more complicated and sophisticated the task, the farther the gap between Fable and every other model out there. Two things drive that gap. The first, single-shot correctness. Give Fable 5 a complex, well-specified problem, and it will nail it on the first pass. Early testers have told us about single prompts that essentially create work that would have taken days or even weeks for a group of teams. The second is long-horizon autonomy. Fable 5 can run for days on a single goal and stay coherent the entire way. It will remember your specifications, even on tasks that span millions of tokens, and it can dispatch sub-agents, keep them on track far more dependably and with more cost consciousness than any other model we ship. One more thing, Fable 5 isn't just good at writing code, it's even better at reading it. It's better at triaging outages, and better at digging through your repo history to figure out what's broken, when, and also to proactively surface suggestions for making it better. Fable 5 is just as much of a step outside of coding. Start with the work that your organizations and companies actually run on, whether that's financial analysis, documents, slides, spreadsheets. Fable 5 manages that work end to end. It'll follow instructions, stay on scope, And what it creates back for you will be professional grade, because this is a model that we built for workflows at scale. It's also better where requests aren't clean. What we've seen is that when you give Fable 5 something messy, multi-threaded, and ask it to figure out what to do next, it can do that work and outshine other versions of Claude. Fable 5's version is also the best in the industry. It can read dense, technical images, web applications, plots, diagrams, charts far more accurately than any other version of Claude we've shipped before. Now, everything I've talked about is about the upside of a model of this capability. But intelligence of this magnitude cuts both ways. 2 months ago, we launched Project Last Wing and made Mythos Preview available to a small group of partners because its capabilities in cybersecurity were strong enough to be potentially misused. Since then, we built a new safeguard system, and that safeguard system allows that same intelligence to be shipped and created and used by everyone with Fable 5. This is a little of how it works. When a request first touches cybersecurity, biology, or chemistry topics, Fable will route it to our next most capable model, Opus 4.8. The response is clearly labeled, and you're charged Opus prices. We know this is not perfect yet. Researchers doing legitimate work in these fields will sometimes hit a block and reroute, and we're continuing to work on that. But that's a type of trade-off that allows our most capable models to be in everyone's hands today, as of this morning, instead of months from now. And our customers are already finding value with Fable. Rakuten found that at highest effort levels, Fable 5 reflects, validates its work, and for them, that makes autonomous automated operations possible at scale. Cognition ran Fable 5 against our frontier coding eval, Frontier Bench, and it scored the highest of any models they tested. They highlighted the long horizon reasoning and how it generalizes to unfamiliar tools, complex contexts, right out of the box. And GenSpark told us that Fable 5 came out #1 in their evals, winning head-to-head against every version of model they tested. It's actually the strongest on the hardest tasks, such as UI design and game coding. So what about Mythos 5? It's the same underlying model as Fable 5, but with the cyber and bio safeguards lifted. For Mythos Preview, we showed what this model class can do, and Mythos 5 is a step beyond that. It's available today for our Glasswing partners as part of Project Glasswing. Later this month, we'll begin enrolling more researchers from life sciences to access Mythos 5, because those same capabilities that make biology risky are actually the same ones that have the highest impact for real good with AI. So as developers, what can you do with Fable 5? One metric I like to look at to make sense of all of this change is time horizon, which is how long a model can work autonomously before losing coherence on what to do next. With Fable 5, we've seen agents that are proactive and know what to do without being told. These agents can be responsible for higher level goals, responsibilities that require judgment, collaboration, and proactive taste. For example, instead of asking Claude to write a project update, you can now ask Fable to make sure the project stays on track for the whole week. Instead of asking Claude to produce a financial forecast, you can tell Fable to own, update, iterate, and improve on the forecast to keep it accurate. As you've seen today, the exponential keeps moving. We need to build for emerging capabilities, not just for today's current models. We expect future versions of Claude to be more capable than the one that even we are releasing today. And Fable 5 and Mythos 5 are just a glimpse into that future. So as developers, how do you take advantage of all of this change ahead? First, you should design for the next version of Claude, not just the current one. What we've seen is that countless times, the developers who win are the ones whose architectures, harnesses, and product experiences are ready to absorb this next jump in intelligence. Claude is intelligent and resourceful, and as models become more intelligent, they can actually do farther with more basic primitives, such as a file system or sandbox computing environments, and far less with sophisticated or too complex harnesses. As models get more intelligent, you also need to start making harder evals and product prototypes for experiences that may not work yet. This is how you actually know that the exponential is moving underneath you. When a task or a prototype or a product experience that wasn't quite always working well starts working, that's a signal to ship something magical that you couldn't have done before. And finally, as the pace continues to accelerate, the teams who win are the ones that get the most out of Claude with model upgrades, and treat them as business opportunities. You should make model upgrades easy. This means things like automated evals, testing processes, and making sure that you stay hands-on, testing, pushing, creating new things with new versions of Claude. And this is how you'll know new capabilities will be enough to deliver new experiences for your customers. We're seeing the exponential continue, which means that Claude will get smarter and be able to pick up new capabilities at scale. And you as developers are some of the first people to feel that. You're the ones who actually can experiment, build new products, and are the first to find opportunities for new markets that others don't see. And we can't wait to see what you'll build next with Fable 5. And now Angela and Caitlin are going to show you a bit of how the Claude platform can make this a reality come to life. Thank you so much.
Please welcome to the stage, Head of Product for the Claude platform, Angela Jane. ステージへようこそ、Claude プラットフォームプロダクト責任者、Angela Jane 様。
Last night, while we were all asleep, a product somewhere noticed that it was broken. This product read its own error reports, it found the bug, and it wrote the fix, and rolled it out to all the users. By the time the team actually woke up, the problem was gone, and the changelog was already written. Now, in this situation, there was no stand-up, there was no ticket, and this is what a native AI company looks like. This is not a company where people just use AI to do their work, but instead, it's a company where work itself runs on the substrate of AI, and people decide what the outcome should be. Now, this story can be a reality if you have the right ingredients, and there's 3 things to that. The first is the harness, the second is the context, and the third is the infrastructure. These 3 are what turn raw intelligence into true business outcomes. And that's exactly what the Claude platform provides. We give you agentic harnesses, context management tools, and production-grade infrastructure that allows you to become truly AI native. Recently, we packaged all these together through Claude Managed Agents, our new product offering. Fable 5 is the best model for building long-running agents, and Managed Agents is purpose-built for Claude. This means when you put these 2 together, you're able to actually get better agent outcomes with significantly less effort. Okay, let's talk about the harness. So the harness is what gives Claude models the ability to actually do work. It includes tools, an environment, and the permission to act. With a harness, the model doesn't just tell you about the fix, it actually makes it happen. You don't want AI that just gives you helpful suggestions. You want AI that can actually do the work.
With Claude Managed Agents, we offer an agentic harness that separates the brain from the hands. The brain decides what to do, and then we spin up sandboxes or hands to execute the work as needed. Our harness also has an iterative-based ability to operate on an outcome. You specify what that outcome is, and then a managed agent is able to iterate until it actually achieves it for you. Second, let's talk about context. Now, a model is only as good as the context that you actually give it. We offer a 1 million context window so that you can have agents that consume high amounts of content without any degradation. But that's not all. We also offer our agents memory so they can actually remember what they've been doing. We also give our agents the ability to read and write skills of their own so they can fill in the knowledge gaps that they're missing. And lastly, we give our agents the ability to dream so they can inspect over their own previous trajectories and identify how to self-improve. And lastly, let's talk about infrastructure. Now, if you build really long-running autonomous agents, this requires extreme scale and reliability. This is one of the hardest parts to get right. Claude Managed Agents automatically spins up and down sandboxes and has the ability to generate multiple agentic fleets when needed to help you optimize for reliable and persistent agents that just get the work done without all the hard work. Building self-improving companies is something that can happen today. And we work with so many companies that have built agentic systems on Claude Managed Agents, and they've been able to do that 10 times faster because they didn't have to roll their own harness or manage their own context or, honestly, build up all the infrastructure that they need. Notion actually use managed agents to power agent orchestration directly within their product. As a result, their users can delegate complex, long-running work to Claude directly inside their workspace. And Notion isn't alone. Asana use managed agents to build AI teammates. These are collaborative AI agents that work alongside humans inside Asana projects, and these agents can take on tasks and complete deliverables. Now, I'd love to welcome Caitlin back to the stage to show what an AI-native company can look like if you build on Claude Managed Agents.
Back in February, Claude became the official thinking partner of the Atlassian Williams Formula One racing team. Competing in F1 racing requires a great driver who knows the track really well, but it also takes a team of engineers and researchers to build a rocket ship on 4 wheels that can go almost 400 kilometers per hour. To show you an example of Claude Managed Agents in action, we worked with a fictional racing team called Shinkiro Racing, and we helped them build a dashboard to analyze their car. Let's see it in action. So here we have our dashboard for Shinkiro Racing. And the way we've set this up is we have these 4 research projects on the side. Each of these research projects is backed by an agent that was built using Claude Managed Agents. So we have our aerodynamics, we have our tire temperature, power unit, and driver safety. And for each of these agents, what they're going to do is research what needs to change in order to make our car better on each of these fronts. So we can go over here and we can choose to kick off a run. Let's start one off now. So while that's running, let me talk about how these agents are built. Like Angela mentioned, we can use the concept of outcomes. Outcomes helps us tell each of our agents, here's what good really looks like. And so when our agents run, we provision a separate grader agent that goes and tells the original agent, did you do a good enough job? And if not, keep trying. So one of the new features that we have within Claude Managed Agents is not only the ability to on-demand kick off a run of an agent, but also to schedule an agent. To show you that, I'll use the Claude Developer Console. If I were a developer working to build Claude Managed Agents, I would use this console for things like observability and tooling to help make my agents really great. And so here you can see within our sessions, we have the run that I just kicked off. And then maybe we can check out another one here. You can see that we can have richer observability around all the things that the agent is actually doing. But one of the more important things that we want today is this concept of deployments. And Wi-Fi is not on my side right now. OK, maybe. All right, we'll skip it. The concept of deployment allows us to choose to kick off a scheduled run of an agent on demand. And so what I was going to show you, but I'll just talk through out loud, is the idea that maybe we want to run a nightly driver safety check. We want our driver safety agent to run every night and take all its learnings and tell us, like, what should we do better for driver safety? We can go ahead and schedule that every night, overnight. But it's not enough to make these agents really easy to set up and use. Like Angela mentioned, it's really important that these agents can be really powerful. An interesting thing about agents is most of the time, they're starting from scratch. They're not using all the context they had from their past sessions in order to do a better job the next time around. So we've incorporated the concept of memory. So each of these 4 agents has a file system where it can write learnings to memory as it runs. But even more important than that, we've built the concept of dreaming. So our agent can decide, maybe I'll take a look back at all these past sessions and write skills or write additional things to memory so that I can do better next time around. And so I can hit this dream button, and this is going to be slow because the Wi-Fi, again, is not on my side. But what would happen is our agents will look back on their past sessions and write these learnings so that they can do better the next time around. All of the features here, everything to build a dashboard like this to help an F1 team build a really, really highly successful car are available today within Claude Managed Agents. So everything you just saw, like outcomes, scheduled deployments, and dreaming, are available today on the Claude platform. Developers everywhere can start building with Fable 5 and Managed Agents today. Now Kat will talk about how Claude Code is making it even more fun to ship as a developer.
Please welcome to the stage, Head of Product for Claude Code, Kat Wu. ステージへようこそ、Claude Code プロダクト責任者、Kat Wu 様。
Caitlin and Angela just showed you how to build production agents on the Claude platform. With Claude Code, we're bringing that same leverage to your work as a developer, not agents you ship to customers, but agents that ship code for you. First, I want to thank all the developers in the room today here and watching online. Thank you for trusting Claude Code back when Sonnet 3.7 was our frontier model and when our product was rough around the edges. Your support is what makes the team so excited to come in every day and make the product even better. Let's back up to why Claude Code exists. The mission of Claude Code is to bridge the difference between an idea and a shipped product. The way that we enable this is we build tools that elicit the frontier intelligence from our models, and we make these tools accessible to every builder. And we don't think of ourselves as having a finished roadmap to share with you. We think of ourselves more like mountaineers, climbing alongside you in terrain that none of us has fully mapped yet, figuring out what works together as we go. And we're growing with you with increasing AI capabilities and helping you navigate new challenges that emerge. I remember just last year, I would give Claude Code a task, and I would review every single edit that it made, giving it detailed instructions about what it should do instead, walking through on every little detail of these simple tasks. Now, many of us are using auto mode to delegate permissions to Claude, and only checking in after Claude Code has already tested its changes and put up a PR that's ready for our review. Claude Code started in the CLI, and this is still the place for power users who want a minimal text interface and the most control and customizations. Then we added the IDE for users who want the same powerful agents, but want to follow along with all of the code changes. Then we heard from many of you that you're running multiple Claude codes in parallel, which you've affectionately called multi-Clauding. And we've added 2 new interfaces to help make that easier. The one that I use most frequently is Claude Code on Claude Desktop. It's designed for people who want this full-screen graphical interface with built-in previews, a sidebar control plane, and the ability to render images and rich outputs. We built Desktop to be a single view across all your local and cloud sessions, with visual indicators of which agents are working and which ones need your input. Next is our newest surface, Claude Agents View in the CLI, for those of you who want a control plane without having to ever leave the terminal. You can see what's waiting on you, what's running, and what's already done. You can reply in line to unblock or jump in and out of any session without losing your place. The VS Code IDE extension and the Claude Code on Claude Desktop app are built on the Claude Agent SDK, the same one that many of you are building on today. Many enterprises have now adopted these Claude Code tools wall to wall. At Anthropic, engineers on average ship 8x more code than they did in past years, even as the size of our engineering team has grown substantially. Together with you all, we're excited to discover and redefine what the future of engineering looks like by embracing new challenges that come and by building automations powered by Claude to attack each one. Here's some of the feedback that we've heard from our users and the products that we've built to address each one with the help of folks in this community. We heard from you that you want to spend less time on code review, so we shipped a code review product that deploys a team of agents to catch critical bugs in your PRs. Thousands of companies use this every day, and this includes all internal Anthropic teams. We heard from you that you really want to code on the go, so we launched remote control and Claude Code on iOS and Android. Now, you're no longer walking around with this laptop that's half open or stuck at your desk. You can now go to a park, touch grass, and still get your coding tasks done. And we heard from you that you want to run Claude Code on new tickets, and so we built routines. You can configure this once, and it'll run on a schedule, a webhook, or an API call to kick off Claude Code on the right task. So the work that used to require a human to manually kick off, routines can take care of for you. And we heard from you that you're landing so much code that your security teams are having a hard time keeping up. So we built Claude Security. It scans your code base overnight, it flags a range of vulnerabilities, including the ones that it believes are most critical, and lets you kick off a Claude Code session to tackle each one. And then finally, we heard that you want better ways to run ambitious, large-scale tasks across your code base, like major refactors and migrations. So we launched dynamic workflows. This lets you kick off Claude Code to run in parallel across tens or hundreds of agents in a deterministic structure to get your most ambitious tasks done. Each of these primitives compose together so that we can more easily adapt to the future of engineering. Everything I've covered is something that an individual developer can pick up today, but it's especially exciting to see how a range of companies are adopting this at the scale of entire engineering orgs. For instance, Spotify uses Claude to migrate thousands of repos. The team built a background agent on the Claude Agent SDK that reads a migration plan in plain English and then kicks off a fleet of agents that opens PRs. They're merging over 1,000 PRs a month into production, and they've cut migration time down by 90%. Another example is Mercari, Japan's consumer-to-consumer marketplace. At Mercari, the entire engineering team runs on Claude Code, and they've measured that engineering output is up 90% year over year using the tool. We see this across the industry. Millions of developers are getting more done and at higher quality than before. Now, let's see what this actually looks like in practice. I'm excited to show you one of my favorite new features in Claude Code. For this demo, let's imagine we're Kaizen operations, and we create apps for engineering teams. Right now, our marketing website is in English only, but we want to launch to 13 additional markets, so we need to localize our site before the launch. Let's start with how we would normally do this with one Claude Code agent. We'll run this prompt asking Claude to convert our website to Japanese, and we'll speed things up as it works. Claude explores the code base, creates a language picker for the website, and translates all the text to Japanese. So Claude's finished its work, and let's check out the results. Here, we can see a full marketing site and view the new Japanese translation from Claude. It took Claude about 3 minutes to complete this one translation, and we have 12 more to go. If we did this one at a time sequentially, it would take us almost an hour and lots of manual prompting with Claude. So instead, we'll use a dynamic workflow, which will let Claude create a repeatable process and run each of the new translations at the same time in parallel. We'll prompt Claude to use a workflow for our translation to these 12 new languages. Claude creates a workflow, and once it's ready, we can open it in the side pane and watch as it works. This is a powerful feature of the Claude Desktop app. You can see all 12 translation agents running at the same time. After the translation agent's complete, it's going to create 12 more agents to verify its work across these new languages. This work would have previously required us to run 12 separate tasks, and it can now be done in just one prompt. And we can also save this workflow as JavaScript code and reuse it for future translations. Let's check out the output. Claude has now created 12 new versions of the website, all localized with one action. We can see them all in the dropdown and check out some of the different languages to see its work. This is just one example of dynamic workflows. We can use them for large-scale migrations, code-based audits, or doing performance optimizations. Any large job that requires running many agents at once in its deterministic structure. Everything you just saw is available today, including dynamic workflows and Claude Code in the Claude Desktop app. And our newest model, Claude Fable 5, is available to all Claude Code users, so you can use the latest intelligence wherever you use Claude Code. We're so excited for you to try out these new features and for you to let us know what you think. We hope they continue to help you close the gap between idea and a shipped product. And this is really what every talk today was pointing at. Diane's capability curve, Angela's agents that run on infrastructure that you control, and what I just showed you. These are 3 layers to one story. The remaining gap is just how fast we can put these great capabilities to work for us. I encourage you to spend the rest of today exploring these layers. Join research talks if you want to learn more about the latest model capabilities. Join Claude platform sessions if you're building your own agents for your end users. Or join Claude Code workshops if you want to learn more ways to bring Claude Code into your day-to-day development work. All of this runs on Claude Fable 5, the best model we've ever shipped for agentic work, and it's live today. Thank you all, and enjoy Code with Claude.
Hi everyone, I'm Charmaine, and I'm on the Apply AI team here at Anthropic. Our team sits at the intersection of product, research, and all of our amazing customers. I'm really excited to be here today to tell you what's new in Claude Code, but I'm also very grateful to be here in Tokyo. I grew up in Hong Kong myself, and so it always feels really nice to be closer to home. I used to work at places where we'd spend 45 minutes going over a deep dive of a feature that we built over the span of a quarter. This session is not that. The team ships so quickly, and there's so much to show you, and so I'm excited to dive right into it. I'll quickly go over the agenda of what we're going to talk about today. Our new features have largely fallen into one of two categories. The first one being developer experience, how we're making Claude Code better for you as you spend more time in it. Second, autonomy. How do we help Claude help you do more while you're away from your keyboard? And then I'll also quickly wrap up with what I don't get to cover today, and I'm sure there's lots of it. So let's talk about developer experience first. This is probably the thing that we care about the most. Even as Claude handles more long-running tasks on its own, we are deeply invested in the human experience. The best tool is the one that you actually enjoy using. So first up is remote control. There's this running joke on our team where you kick off a long-running session, you need to step away temporarily, and it suddenly feels like you are abandoning your child at daycare. What's even going on in your phone? So remote control fixes that. You start a session on your machine, and you can pick it up from your phone or the browser. My favorite pattern is actually kicking off a long-running task, going on a walk, and as ideas come to me, I'll ask sub-agents to spin up different tasks or check on my phone. I've actually been doing that during this trip as well. Yesterday, right before dinner, I kicked off a task, and then I was able to check on it on my phone while waiting for my delicious pizza. I'm going to quickly jump into a demo here and show you what this actually looks like. So I have a running session of Claude Code here, and I just asked it, can you tell me more about this repo? And then I said, it's demo time, please run the server. Let's hope the Wi-Fi works well here, but this is a demo repo of Excalidraw. Excalidraw is a virtual whiteboard that you can draw on. I'll show you what that looks like if you haven't seen it before. You can draw fun diagrams directly on it. You can even type, hello, code with Claude Tokyo. This is a really great technical architecture drawing surface. It's also open source, so really recommend checking it out if you haven't already. But I'll go ahead and show you what this looks like if I kicked off /remote control. So what this will do is actually connect the session that I have running locally to the remote session. So you'll notice here that remote control is now active. I can continue coding in the Claude mobile app with a QR code here, or you can go back and actually click on this link here to open the session on the web. So I'll show you what that looks like. You'll notice that the same session that I just had running on my local CLI is now running on the web. Let's try again. So these two sessions are now hooked up, and theoretically, I'd be able to access this directly through the web here. You'll see the same prompts that I just shared. Run the app. Can you tell me more about this repo? Run the server again. And these two sessions are now hooked up. I can also then say, can you give me a quick one-liner recap of the repo? Just so you remember before we head into the rest of the demos what we're looking at. And so you'll see here that it's running the task, and if I go back to my terminal, you'll see the same prompt there, and these two sessions are now hooked up. All right, now let's go back to the presentation. I don't think I even need to ask for a show of hands here about who has experience flickering while you're using Claude Code in the terminal. And we are very sorry about that. We are here to make amends. For context, our previous rendering approach appended to the existing terminal scrollback, and so even a single misalignment would trigger an entire repaint, and that caused the flickering. Our new full screen mode virtualizes that scrollback entirely. So you get flicker-free output, you get clickable elements directly inside your terminal, and your memory usage stays flat even for very long-running sessions. And once again, I'm going to go back and show you what that actually looks like. So as I go show you this tab here, you can notice I'm now using Fable 5 after the launch today, and I'm going to run /2e full screen. So 2e stands for the terminal UI. This preference that I have now, we will apply to all future sessions. I'm also kind of getting tired of typing, so I'm going to do /voice here and toggle voice mode on. So what's going to happen here is when I press space, it'll start recording the prompt I have. So write a file containing 5 friendly jokes about Tokyo. All right, it looks like that will work. All right, let me try one more time. I might try to swap the Wi-Fi here and see if that works. If that doesn't, we can move. Right. All right, looks like it's taking a while. I think we can go ahead and fall back to the video if possible, where we show the same thing. Alrighty, so this is showing exactly what I showed you there, right? You run /2e full screen, now enters into this mode where you're able to look at the diff inline, click on file paths directly, and view the file directly within your terminal without exiting. And as your terminal gets really long and your session starts overgrowing what the window is, you can also scroll up and down and not have any flicker. All right, let's go back to the presentation slides. All right. So some people on the team really love the terminal, but others have been gravitating towards Claude Code GUI on desktop and web. So we've largely redesigned it around one question. What is the difference when I want to manage 10 sessions instead of 1? And so once again, I will go back into the demo and see what we can do here. All right. So take a look here. This is Claude Code Desktop. If you haven't visited in a while, you'll notice that there are some new changes. This is the code tab within Claude Desktop. And within it, you can see a series of sessions I have running on the side. You can even see the sessions I had a little bit earlier, and you can actually see the background tasks that I have running as well. The server is running in the background. You can also sort by different statuses. I like just sorting by active because I want to see the active sessions that need my attention instead of everything. You can also group by anything that you want. You'll also notice here that there is a top right. You can preview the session. You can view diffs directly in line. You can also, once again, look at background tasks or the plan that you have, or even all the files it has access to. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and actually open the plan that Claude generated. So for context, I have a prompt here that says I want to add a new shape to the whiteboard drawing tool. And on the top bar, I want to create this shape Claude, our little Claude logo. And so here you notice that I have the plan on the right. And I actually want it to have, instead of just the pixel art graph, I also want to make it rainbow. And so I can leave that comment directly in line and hit revise, and that'll kick off that it's Claude. You'll also notice I have another session here, and you can view the diff directly in line. You can even pull the sessions next to each other and view them side by side. One more thing here that I really love, there's an effort dial on the very bottom. You can drag it all the way here and see the beauty of Ultra Code, which I'll talk a bit about in a second. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right, now let's talk about autonomy. Here's a pattern that's motivated every feature within this session. You hand Claude a task, you come back, and Claude was stuck on something really small, like a permission prompt, a branch conflict, a missing build command. Feels like you wasted a bunch of time. The frustrating part is that Claude can actually do all of the hard tasks. It gets tripped up on the very small things. So we ask ourselves, what are all the little things that break during a very long-running session, and how do we actually go and fix each one of them? Starting with auto mode. Auto mode is a new permissions mode where Claude makes permission decisions for you through a classifier. When a tool call would normally hit a permission prompt, the classifier checks, is this prompt destructive? Does this look like prompt injection? If it's safe, it'll run. If it is risky, it'll actually get blocked, and Claude will either find another way to do it, or it'll pump the permission back to you. We've all had that moment where we step off with a very long-running task and come back and realize, oh no, there's a permission prompt waiting for me. So auto mode solves that. Work trees. They're one of my favorite features because they solve something that used to burn me constantly. I have multiple Claude sessions running in the same repo, and they step on each other's branches. So I end up with merge conflicts everywhere. Git work trees have existed for a very long time. They create separate working directories, each on its own branch. But there are also sharp edges around it. And so we built a friendlier interface for it. You can kick it off with -- work tree or -w to start a new session in a new work tree, or you can just ask Claude to do it for you. What I love about this is how natural it feels. You stop thinking about what are all the Git mechanics. Maybe any software engineer doesn't even need to know how that works. Claude just handles all of that for you, and you can focus on building features and products. Auto memory is another one. It lets Claude accumulate knowledge across sessions so you don't have to keep repeating yourself. So everything from build commands, debugging insights, or project inferences, Claude decides what's worth remembering based on whether it would help in future conversation. Memory MD gets loaded in just like your Claude MD would, and recent models like Opus 4.8 and Fable 5 have been meaningfully better at managing their own memory. As Kat mentioned, at Anthropic, we have been experimenting with a different approach to code review. Instead of one reviewer looking at everything, we spin up teams of Claude agents that review, each of them focus on different parts of the code base. And then a verification pass checks whether the findings are actually valid. Then you can set this up for all of your PRs through our GitHub app or try it manually with /ultra review. So stepping back for a second, right, between auto mode, work trees, auto memory, and code review, the shape of our workflows have changed quite drastically. You have fewer things to approve, more agents working in parallel without conflicts, and knowledge building over time. And you have a whole team that's reviewing your code before you even get to it. Your job largely shifts from doing the work to steering. Routines shipped in research preview recently, and they take autonomy a step further. You configure a session with a prompt, your repo, and any connectors that you want. And then you just pick a trigger, a cron schedule, a GitHub webhook, or an API. From then on, it can run without you. So you can have a routine that triages GitHub issues that are on your repo and then send you a Slack digest every morning. Or one that fires every time your site makes a sale. So let me jump into another demo to show you what this actually looks like. So you'll notice here I'm in the Routines tab, and I have a routine that I've been running for the past couple of weeks. What it does is it reviews all of the open issues within my Scala repo, which is here, and it actually goes and triages all of the issues and tries to label them in order of priority. And so I'll click into one of these routines here, and you'll notice that it has a summary of all of the triage statuses. Specifically, you'll see here, number 5, someone filed an issue that says the canvas goes blank on an iPad. Claude actually went over it and couldn't reproduce it, so it added a label that says needs repro. So you'll notice that it's really exercising judgment more than just going and naively fixing every issue that you have as well. If I click back into the actual routine, you'll see the name for it, the instructions that I included for this to run daily. You also have a cron trigger. You just write a cron expression right here. You can add other triggers as well, whether it be a GitHub webhook or trigger it through hitting an API endpoint. And you can also add any connectors that you'd like it to have access to as well. So this is really great for being able to kick off tasks regularly without managing that. I'm going to go back to the slides for a second. I want to talk about Agent View. Agent View is one of our most recent launches. Agent View shows you all of your Claude Code sessions in one place. Which agent is waiting for you, which are still working, and which are done. You can kick off new agents, send them to the background, and jump in only when Claude needs you. This is a new interaction model entirely, so instead of babysitting one session, you get to steer the whole fleet. So I'll go back and show you what this looks like. All right. So you'll notice here that I ran Claude agents, and I have a few agents running here at the same time. So let's take a look at the completed one first. I asked it to write a quick summer code review, a short haiku about code review in summer, and save it as a haiku.txt. Once again, you'll notice that it's able to write it, and you'll see the diff directly in line here. Now if I go back, you'll see that there are different sessions that are actively working right now, but I want to take a look at something that needs my input. So I give it a task to add a contributing section to the README. Before you write anything, ask me which audience it should target. I want this for the Scala repo that I just showed. And Claude went ahead and gave me a bunch of different suggestions that it thinks are appropriate. I want specifically all open source developers are welcome, and that's what we're targeting because we love open source. And so as I go here, once I go back to the agent view, you'll notice that that session went from needs input to actually working. All right, back to the slides. I want to go over, finally, dynamic workflows. This just went GA this week. You give Claude a really big task, like a codebase-wide bug hunt or a very large migration. Claude will go ahead and write an orchestration script, spin up as many sub-agents as it needs in parallel, checks their work, and then hands back one coordinated result. A quick note on how to trigger it. We've heard you loud and clear that just triggering based on the keyword workflow has been a bit ambiguous and it'll over-trigger, and so now we've made the keyword ultra code. So instead of saying using kind of a workflow, actually, you can still say use a workflow for this, and it'll work if it's an explicit trigger, but otherwise ultra code is the reliable way to trigger it. Dynamic workflows means you can stop decomposing tasks yourself. You just describe the outcome, and Claude will figure out the plan. We're really excited to see what you tackle with it. And if you can only try one thing from the session, something that I wasn't able to demo today, you should absolutely try this. It's quite magical. All right. Then I want to go through some recent changelog items. I'm not going to read over every single one of them, but it's here so you can photograph it if you'd like. I just look at this and really think, wow, we have shipped so much in the past few months, and there are many more to come. I'm just going to draw your attention. For those of you managing Claude Code for teams or enterprises, we have shipped better Windows support, cloud provider setup, installation improvements, admin settings management, and plugin features. You can, as always, follow along in all of our public changelog, as well as at any time running /release notes directly within the CLI. A few more ways to keep up with what is new: follow Claude Devs on X, read what is new in our docs, and of course, subscribe to our amazing developer newsletter. I'll leave you with one thought here. Every feature I showed today started as someone on the team saying, this is annoying, let's fix it, or what does this feature or workflow look like in an AI-first world? How do we revisit this from first principles? If you feel that way about something in Claude Code today, tell us. That is how the best features get built. We hope you learned something new today, and we'd love to hear what you think. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Charmaine. I'm on the Applied AI team here, and I would love to chat with you after. It is an honor to be here. Enjoy the rest of Code with Claude Tokyo.
Please welcome to the stage, Head of AI Products at Canva, Danny Wu. ステージへようこそ、Canva AI プロダクト責任者、Danny Wu 様。
Konnichiwa and hello everyone. Thank you all so much for joining this session at Quad. I'm Danny and I'm head of AI products at Canva, and I'm really excited to be hopefully sharing some of our top learnings from building Canva AI 2.0 with Claude with all of you, and hopefully this will be helpful for all of you builders out here. So let's get started with the agenda. I'll briefly cover a quick overview of what Canva AI 2.0 is and share a few of our top lessons, including how we actually redefine what our success criteria was as we learned, things we've learned around building our agentic harnesses, how we manage cost at scale to serve tens of millions of users, and a little bit around responding to and really listening to community feedback. So I want to first start with a bit of an intro about what Canva AI is. And if you don't know what Canva is, it's a graphic design and visual communication platform that lets you create everything from this docs, presentations, posters, emails, and pretty much anything you can imagine. You can create it with Canva. And Canva AI is really designed to help our user base and help our community achieve all their design and productivity workflows. So here's a little video. If you have something like you can connect all your data sources like Slack, Google Drive, Calendar, and more, and really use Canva AI to get your work done inside Canva, like getting all the right context from, and then using it to create a doc, create a design that you can edit natively and really, really easily and collaborate to get work done. So I also want to talk a little bit about Claude. At Canva, we have been using Claude since the Sonnet 3 model days, and as we've all seen with Fable earlier today, the frontier intelligence for Claude models continue to advance. We're seeing it increasingly solve some of our hardest challenges that was more or less unimaginable just a few months ago or several months ago. And of course, we run fairly comprehensive evals across all sorts of different tasks, workloads on the trifecta of quality, cost, and latency, and Claude consistently delivers. One thing that's especially good and that we love about Claude models is their visual superpowers. And this goes beyond front-end design. We find that it generalizes really well to everything from creating polished presentations, including on brand decks, but also all kinds of visual artifacts from just anything from printables to docs and so much more. And another thing that's especially great is the flexible deployment options. And for us, having Claude available, Bedrock, Vertex, and Microsoft Foundry is more than just a different API endpoint, but it's a way for us to build and use Claude inside all of our AWS accounts, inside of with our IAM roles, permissions, and cost tracking. So it makes it really, really easy to integrate. And now I'll give a bit of an overview about Canva AI 2.0, which is actually a fairly complex agentic system. So while it looks like just a simple text box on the surface, it is actually something that orchestrates quite a combination of different agents, like our design agent or code agent that powers Canva code, as you saw earlier today. But it also has really hundreds of different tools for all kinds of tasks, from things like image generation to background removal, magic layers. And essentially, what we are continuing to do is really baking in all the different features, all the different things that a normal user could do through the Canva platform, but really integrating them and adding them as tools that Canva AI and our agents can call. And of course, we've got the platform layer where you have all of the connectors, all the MCPs, memory, scheduling, and everything else. It might look a little bit simple on the surface, but getting this to work and create a cohesive experience for our users is a little bit more complicated, especially with increasing powers of AI models and user tasks. And now I want to say a few challenges. So at Canva, we do have a distributed AI team. We want our whole organization to be working on AI. For example, we want our video group to be working and have ownership of video AI. We want our print group to really have ownership of all of our print features and everything. And so we really need to find patterns that scale across an organization of about 5,500 people. And Canva handles such a broad range of jobs to be done. And in terms of scale, we especially with the launch of Canva AI 2.0, everything has just continued to grow. So scaling is definitely a fun challenge. I'll start with the first lesson, and that's really around defining the problem and really building solutions that connect with users. And for us, it's actually learning that empowering our users to design isn't necessarily just about one-shot outputs or how good it is. And this is because, and while this is obviously a dream, we'd love to be able to translate a really broad prompt into an amazing output from the get-go, there's a lot of considerations. For example, design is inherently subjective. Different users have different tastes, have different preferences. We've got different teams and companies. They've got certain brand systems and brand kits that need to be integrated. And there's not necessarily a right design that's perfect for a task. There's rubrics, there's evals, and there's user preferences. But design is inherently subjective. And from what we find, both through internal testing and really talking to our users and early testers of Canva AI, the human touch actually does really matter. For example, the average Canva design is edited about 110 times before it's been published. And what we've sought to build with Canva AI 2.0 is not just an agent that is executing things in the background and able to complete the designs and just gives you a little down toggle, but it's really something that can work with you, something that you can steer, something that you can really work alongside as a super design collaborator. And finally, latency and responsiveness is one of the top goals. We actually find really, really strong correlations. Since Canva is interactive and our users expect to be able to complete the design needs quickly and effortlessly, we see a huge correlation between like user satisfaction, feature retention, everything with the latency. And sometimes there's actually even more than our quality metrics and rubrics. So figuring out how we can make the agentic system not just really good, but also really fast matters a lot. And I'll show you an example of how we've actually applied this to the design agent. If you look at the start, we've got what's the Canva template, and that's obviously not personalized, not customized, but a really, really great starting point. And the middle of the pack is what we found is our sweet spot, at least for now, in terms of the amount of effort and the amount of the design quality we want to get before handing back initial design to the user. If we get the LLMs and get the models to work for a lot longer and spend a lot more tokens and spend a lot more effort, also correspondingly more time, then we can get a little bit of a more polished output, as you can see from the slides. But that's not necessarily what most of our users prefer. And of course, if you do ask for something really amazing, we'll make it for you. So this is really about how at least the way we see it, there's a little bit of a efficient frontier or a sweet spot for models. And it's not necessarily about quality maxing. It's not necessarily about, I'm going for the lowest cost, but finding the right effort levels, finding the right prompts for agentic harness to really get to what is like the right spot where most of our users are the happiest. Now, the second lesson, and this is around our agentic harness and how we're increasingly seeing this as disposable. I think with the rise of just how powerful agentic engineering is and new models like Fable, but also really like with Opus and Power models, this is just a quote from me, but I think today's clever harness is really tomorrow's dead code. Like harnesses and what boundaries you set, it's constantly changing with new models. You find new things that work best. And we've seen this a lot with our own journey. So we've had some form of Canva AI for the past 3 years, and we've essentially rewritten the entire Canva AI harness at least 3 times. As we adapted to new models, we originally started with doing internal chain of thought prompting before moving on to taking advantage of native model capabilities. We started leveraging more and more tools. The early versions of Canva AI maybe only had 3 or 4 tools. Now we can have hundreds of tools. And my whole point here is really like harnesses. Your agentic harness is something that you should continue to iterate and something you should continue to evolve. It's not something. It might be okay to keep on building things and keep on testing things, but especially when there's a big jump in models like the Claude 5 family, it's a perfect starting point to really reevaluate what you actually need and whether giving models more power can give you better outputs for lower quality. Better outputs for lower latency and higher quality. What's really important here and what is not disposable, but what is really, really valuable are evals. And for us specifically, we started moving to this recently, end-to-end evals. The way I would think of this is if a software engineer, like you might write unit tests, and those could be traditional evals that measure the performance of, say, a specific task or a specific feature. But when you're building a complex agentic system that has things like user memory, that has things like external connectors, that has like things like integrations, then you really want to make sure that your end-to-end flow is working and behaving the way we expect as you do A/B tests, as you test different system prompt changes, or even test different models, different effort levels, and so much more. These end-to-end evals are what really gives us confidence in launching new features or rolling out things to 100%, as well as really understanding what's the best way to leverage a model's capabilities. And it's a list that will continue to grow and expand, and really it's kind of our mode for building better and better Canva AI. Getting there isn't super simple, and it is definitely an iterative process. It's something that you can start. We've started like our initial ones, maybe had like 10 or like a dozen test cases before we've added hundreds and hundreds more, and then we've started having to only run a portion of these evals just to make the times work. And what we found super helpful is really having services and having mechanisms to be able to launch features and launch experiments to users, to early adopters, beyond your internal team really early. Once you launch to some users, every time we find that users either have different expectations to what we thought, usually not that far off, but usually a little bit different, and the feedback and how users actually use your agentic product, not what you have in your, say, marketing videos or press releases. That's what you need. That's what you need to add to your evals to really deliver a great experience. And I also give a bit of a call out for signals of success. I think it's really important to actually be very deliberate when you're doing experiments to measure the right metrics. We found things like do users spend more turns on Canva AI to actually not be that helpful, because when you have say a more powerful AI agent, users might be able to complete the task in less turns, or actually get a design faster and spend less time on your platform and get their work done. And that's a good thing. So my advice is don't necessarily go for engagement metrics or things like time or time spent or turn spent, but rather just help your users get the jobs done. Do they come back to your system? What's their retention? And really, the combination of all these will help you build agents that really perform. Now getting to a meatier and hopefully exciting topic, and that's managing cost at scale. Canva AI is used by tens of millions of users and growing each and every single month, and it's continuing to accelerate. So and the vast majority of Canva users are free, and we believe it's really, really important to be able to offer AI to everyone, to students, to people who might not be able to afford, say, upgrades to Canva AI right now. So that's why we try to make it as efficient as possible. And there's probably three key takeaways that we found really helpful. The first one is setting term budget limits, and the task budget feature in the Anthropic platform is actually surprisingly effective and has certainly surprised us in terms of how much models scale. Smart model routing is another really important area. Usually, like all the hype is around the most powerful and the latest models, but honestly, across the whole core model family, there's some really excellent performers. And one of the biggest ways you can optimize your costs is to ensure that you are always using the right models for the right workloads and tasks. And finally, I'll talk a little bit about creating a cost-aware culture across the organization, especially if you're in a large company where there's many developers and many builders contributing and building to your AI. So the first one is around term and budget limits. And I guess like why have this in the first place? If you're used to Claude coding, you're probably thinking, gee, like it's a bit annoying if like your product actually interrupts users and stops them before the task is actually completed. But especially for our product, which is used by users of all AI skill and proficiency levels, we often see prompts that are not entirely super effective. For example, if you look at this prompt, keep working on each and every page in this deck, which could be a 40-page deck or maybe even sometimes a 100-page deck until it's really good. Frontier models will do an amazing job at it with unlimited time and with unlimited budget. But if you don't have unlimited usage or budget to offer to users or in a session or when costs matter, then setting constraints and actually instructing the model and giving a bit of a budget to complete a term really does help. And finally, like no matter what, no matter how much you test, no matter how much you optimize, anytime, especially when you're dealing with external systems or external connectors, you're probably going to see what we call like doom loops every once in a while, where an agent might keep on trying the same thing again and again and again, and that's not really great if it blows past the user's entire budget. So our goal with term budgets is really to help our users get the most value out of the AI limits that they do have and ultimately have a happier experience. The first thing that I encourage all of you to start with and explore if you haven't is term budgets that was introduced on the Anthropic platform fairly recently and for the latest models. So with term budgets, you can basically instruct Claude, hey, you have like a 32,000 token budget, you have a 50K token budget, and you leave the decisions up to the model to actually budget itself and manage how it executes the task. So here's some examples with one of our design generation harnesses. We're using the same model and giving the same prompts. Nothing else changes in these examples except the term budget. And you can see how Opus actually scales incredibly well and delivers a presentation of a form across essentially like half an order of magnitude of term budgets. Determining what the token budget is, that's definitely something that's very harness specific, but Frontier models, Opus, and even Fable, they do scale incredibly well across both effort levels and term budgets, and those are things that you can control to help deliver more optimized AI experiences. Seriously, they're so powerful. And one thing I will note is that task budgets only count tokens, and if you have an agentic system, you probably do have tool calling costs. So for example, image generation costs a little bit of money, like things like web search might cost money. So what we have done and found to be actually really effective is to essentially like follow similar patterns to how task budgeting is implemented, but also for us track and have costs for all the different tools. We do this in a very similar way, and essentially like at the start of the task, we instruct the model like Opus with what the budget is for the session. Every once in a while, during a turn, we give it a reminder of, hey, you're this way through, and finally, once it has reached a term budget, we ask the model to wrap up and finish its work. I will note that generally, like these things like do work fairly consistently, but not 100% of the time. They are advisory and they're hard limits, so you should also have hard systems level enforcement if hard budgets are important to you. And ultimately, like where you get to, what the sweet spot is for your application and for your use cases is something that you need to profile yourselves based on the workloads you want to support and what your cost profile is. This is actually, we stripped out the specific numbers here, but there's actually real from Camera 2.0. We did an analysis of our user sessions and really tried to set a good limit that allows for a very sensible and very decent amount of work, but also use the latest and most powerful frontier models super effectively. And there are a lot of things that you can do to actually make term budgets much more user-friendly. And you can do this just through system prompting and giving instructions. For us, the pattern that we found that works really well, especially in an interactive agent application, is offering helpful next steps, like communicating what the agent has actually performed. If there's any actions that the user has asked for that it has not performed, like in this case, where it added 10 slides but haven't finished things due to the term budget, and asks users for either additional context or steers, but also offers to simply continue the task. And the second part, beyond term budgets and limits, is really smart model routing with sub-agents. And why sub-agents? I'll take you through an example with Camera Code. So our minimum viable product and version 1 of Camera Code was just using Sonnet, which is very simple and very straightforward. But for simple queries like editing some text or replacing a graphic, you really don't need Sonnet. Haiku is going to do an excellent job. And so we experimented and tried model routing, where when giving user prompt, we would either send it, depending on how complex it is, we would either send it to Opus or Sonnet or Haiku. And this initially seemed to work, but it actually had some downsides. writes. And primarily, every time we switch models, we have to write the cache again. And since we're editing code, like the context window, it might be tainted, so the cache is no longer coherent. And in a lot of cases, the cache writes that we're paying for might actually override the benefit. So we moved on to a more, I guess, so we moved to a sub-agents approach, and this is ultimately what worked best for us with Canva code. We have a main agent that has essentially the canonical context and plays a little bit of an orchestration role. And depending on the task, it can choose to delegate that to an open sub-agent to perform it, or a hybrid sub-agent to perform it, and then send it back to the main Sonnet agent thread. This worked really, really well because it kept patching rates really high in the high 80s and 90s instead of constant patching and writes. We ultimately almost halved our costs and delivered user satisfaction to boot. And finally, the last thing around cost is really having great reporting and monitoring systems. This is not just useful for you, but it's also really useful to having great dashboards where you have tracing for all your costs, every session, and everything that's involved in an agentic session is a great way for you to get Claude to also help you profile and help you find, test, and experiment with optimizations. We also find that surfacing costs in our internal staff UX to have really helped, and this has been especially helpful for discovering edge cases where some what should be simple or very cheap requests consume a significant amount of tokens or costs due to edge cases or bugs. I definitely encourage you to not be shy about surfacing like how much every single agentic action or every single like interaction costs to your internal team and maybe even to your users as well, depending on what your customer is. It's just so important to know this and have this available with every single action. The last one that I'll cover briefly is around user feedback, and I'll share a story of one of our recent launches, Image Upscaler. So we launched our internal in-house image upscaling model just a couple months ago. After some some great A/B tests and evals, we rolled it out, and we got a little bit of mixed feedback. So here's some feedback from our community users around the image upscaler. And this was despite the fact that we saw we had such huge confidence, like usage of our upscaling was up by a few multiples. Our eval cases generally look good, but we also had a minority amount of user feedback, but really vocal feedback. So what we listened to, what we found helpful is really leveraging the feedback and support channels and really like having the systems for capturing and surfacing any user feedback directly to you and using AI to categorize and triaging them to the relevant teams and tag them with the relevant features. So we got hundreds of examples from our community around where the image upscaling model wasn't performing as well. We added this to our evaluation. We learned a lot of things. We learned that for some specific inputs, some specific art styles, it didn't work super perfectly. There's some other edge cases. And what we ultimately did is pretty much added all the examples our community has submitted to our evals. We trained and rolled out version 2, and then got to 100%. And finally, close the loop with our users. And if any kind of users that still has feedback on image upscaler right now, please do send and share it to us because we always love to make it better. But really, it's so valuable and so powerful to be channeling your most vocal user feedback and even complaints into learnings. And just because the minority of users, just because it's a few percent, even if your evals look good, even if your metrics look good, that doesn't necessarily mean you've always hit a spot. So very briefly, so you can grab lunch, some key lessons. It's really about empowering the human and making sure that you are striving for what actually helps your users the most. Harnesses are getting more and more disposable. Don't get attached. Don't fall in love with them. Evals are what really matters. Cost control, like task budgets, like if you haven't tried it, highly recommend you try it out. It's incredibly powerful. Effort levels, models, using the right models for the right tasks and sub-agents. And finally, listen to your community and all your feedback. Thank you, and arigatou gozaimasu.
So these were some of the sessions in which they introduced Canva, just gave a good high level overview of what they are doing right now. And there were some interesting things for the dynamic workflows, and specifically this, using Claude Opus to dynamic orchestration scripts that can run parallel sub-agents. So this was fun. Agent view was good too. I will be trying all this out, and auto memory, auto mode, cloud code, remote control. Let's take a listen to this again, since I am waiting for the other new content from Code with Claude.
See the same prompt there, and these two sessions are now hooked up. All right, now let's go back to the presentation. I don't think I even need to ask for a show of hands here about who has experience flickering while you're using Claude Code in the terminal. And we are very sorry about that. We are here to make amends. For context, our previous rendering approach appended to the existing terminal scrollback, and so even a single misalignment would trigger an entire repaint, and that caused the flickering. Our new full screen mode virtualizes that scrollback entirely. So you get flicker-free output, you get clickable elements directly inside your terminal, and your memory usage stays flat even for very long-running sessions. And once again, I'm going to go back and show you what that actually looks like. So as I go show you this tab here, you can notice I'm now using Fable 5 after the launch today, and I'm going to run /2e full screen. So 2e stands for the terminal UI. This preference that I have now, we will apply to all future sessions. I'm also kind of getting tired of typing, so I'm going to do /voice here and toggle voice mode on. So what's going to happen here is when I press space, it'll start recording the prompt that I have. So write a file containing 5 friendly jokes about Tokyo. All right, it looks like that. That'll work. All right, let me try one more time. I might try to swap the Wi-Fi here and see if that works. If that doesn't, we can move. All right. All right, looks like it's taking a while. I think we can go ahead and fall back to the video if possible, where we show the same thing. Alrighty, so this is showing exactly what I showed you there, right? You run /2e full screen, now enters into this mode where you're able to look at the diff inline, click on file paths directly, and view the file directly within your terminal without exiting. And as your terminal gets really long and your session starts overgrowing what the window is, you can also scroll up and down and not have any flicker. All right, let's go back to the presentation slides. All right. So some people on the team really love the terminal, but others have been gravitating towards Claude Code GUI on desktop and web. So we've largely redesigned it around one question. What is the difference when I want to manage 10 sessions instead of 1? And so once again, I will go back into the demo and see what we can do here. All right. So take a look here. This is Claude Code Desktop. If you haven't visited it in a while, you'll notice that there are some new changes. This is the code tab within Claude Desktop. And within it, you can see a series of sessions that I had running on the side. You can even see the session that I had a little bit earlier, and you can actually see the background tasks that I have running as well. The server is running in the background. You can also sort by different statuses. I like just sorting by active because I want to see the active sessions that need my attention instead of everything. You can also group by anything that you want. You'll also notice here that there is a top right. You can preview the session. You can view diffs directly in line. You can also, once again, look at background tasks or the plan that you have or even all the files it has access to. So I'm going to go ahead and go here and actually open the plan that Claude generated. So for context, I have a prompt here that says I want to add a new shape to the whiteboard drawing tool. And on the top bar, I want to create this shape, Claude, our little Claude logo. And so here you notice that I have the plan on the right. And I actually want it to have, instead of just the pixel art crab, I also want to make it rainbow. And so I can leave that comment directly in line and hit revise, and that'll kick off the edits Claude. You'll also notice that I have another session here, and you can view the diff directly in line. You can even pull the sessions next to each other and view them side by side. One more thing here that I really love, there's an effort dial on the very bottom. You can drag it all the way here and see the beauty of Ultra Code, which I'll talk a bit about in a second. All right, let's go back to the slides. All right, now let's talk about autonomy. Here's a pattern that's motivated every feature within this session. You hand Claude a task, you come back, and Claude was stuck on something really small, like a permission prompt, a branch conflict, a missing build command. Feels like you wasted a bunch of time. The frustrating part is that Claude can actually do all of the hard tasks. It gets tripped up on the very small things. So we ask ourselves, what are all the little things that break during a very long-running session, and how do we actually go and fix each one of them? Starting with auto mode. Auto mode is a new permissions mode where Claude makes permission decisions for you through a classifier. When a tool call would normally hit a permission prompt, the classifier checks, is this prompt destructive? Does this look like prompt injection? If it's safe, it'll run. If it is risky, it'll actually get blocked, and Claude will either find another way to do it, or it'll pump the permission back to you. We've all had that moment where we step off with a very long-running task and come back and realize, oh no, there's a permission prompt waiting for me. So auto mode solves that. Work trees. They're one of my favorite features because they solve something that used to burn me constantly. I have multiple Claude sessions running in the same repo, and they step on each other's branches. So I end up with merge conflicts everywhere. Git work trees have existed for a very long time. They create separate working directories, each on its own branch. But there are also sharp edges around it. And so we built a friendlier interface for it. You can kick it off with --worktree or -w to start a new session in a new work tree, or you can just ask Claude to do it for you. What I love about this is how natural it feels. You stop thinking about what are all the Git mechanics. Maybe a new software engineer doesn't even need to know how that works. Claude just handles all of that for you, and you can focus on building features and products. Auto memory is another one. It lets Claude accumulate knowledge across sessions so you don't have to keep repeating yourself. So everything from build commands, debugging insights, or project inferences. Claude decides what's worth remembering based on whether it would help in a future conversation. Memory MD gets loaded in just like your Claude MD would, and recent models like Opus 4.8 and Fable 5 have been meaningfully better at managing their own memory. As Kat mentioned, at Anthropic, we have been experimenting with a different approach to code review. Instead of one reviewer looking at everything, we spin up teams of Claude agents that review, each of them focused on different parts of the code base. And then a verification pass checks whether the findings are actually valid. Then you can set this up for all of your PRs through our GitHub app or try it manually with /ultra review. So stepping back for a second, right, between auto mode, work trees, auto memory, and code review, the shape of our workflows have changed quite drastically. You have fewer things to approve, more agents working in parallel without conflicts, and knowledge building over time. And you have a whole team that's reviewing your code before you even get to it. Your job largely shifts from doing the work to steering. Routines shipped in research preview recently, and they take autonomy a step further. You configure a session with a prompt, your repo, and any connectors that you want. And then you just pick a trigger, a cron schedule, a GitHub webhook, or an API. From then on, it can run without you. So you can have a routine that triages GitHub issues that are on your repo and then send you a Slack digest every morning. Or one that fires every time your site makes a sale. So let me jump into another demo to show you what this actually looks like. So you'll notice here I'm in the Routines tab, and I have a routine that I've been running for the past couple of weeks. What it does is it reviews all of the open issues within my Scala repo, which is here, and it actually goes and triages all of the issues and tries to label them in order of priority. And so I'll click into one of these routines here, and you will notice that it has a summary of all of the triage statuses. Specifically, you'll see here, number 5, someone filed an issue that says the canvas goes blank on an iPad. Claude actually went over it and couldn't reproduce it, so it added a label that says needs repro. So you'll notice that it's really exercising judgment more than just going and naively fixing every issue that you have as well. If I click back into the actual routine, you'll see the name for it, the instructions that I included for this to run daily. You also have a cron trigger. You just write a cron expression right here. You can add other triggers as well, whether it be a GitHub webhook or trigger it through hitting an API endpoint. And you can also add any connectors that you'd like it to have access to as well. So this is really great for being able to kick off tasks regularly without managing that. I'm going to go back to the slides for a second. I want to talk about Agent View. Agent View is one of our most recent launches. Agent View shows you all of your Claude Code sessions in one place. Which agent is waiting for you, which are still working, and which are done. You can kick off new agents, send them to the background, and jump in only when Claude needs you. This is a new interaction model entirely, so instead of babysitting one session, you get to steer the whole fleet. So I'll go back and show you what this looks like. Oh. All right. So you'll notice here that I ran Claude agents, and I have a few agents running here at the same time. So let's take a look at the completed one first. I asked it to write a quick summer code review, a short haiku about code review in summer, and save it as a haiku.txt. Once again, you'll notice that it's able to write it, and you'll see the diff directly in line here. Now, if I go back, you'll see that there are different sessions that are actively working right now, but I want to take a look at something that needs my input. So I give it a task to add a contributing section to the README. Before you write anything, ask me which audience it should target. I want this for the Scala repo that I just showed. And Claude went ahead and gave me a bunch of different suggestions that it thinks are appropriate. I want specifically all open source developers are welcome, and that's what we're targeting because we love open source. And so as I go here, once I go back to the agent view, you'll notice that that session went from needs input to actually working. All right, back to the slides. I want to go over, finally, dynamic workflows. This just went GA this week. You give Claude a really big task, like a code-base-wide bug hunt or a very large migration. Claude will go ahead and write an orchestration script, spin up as many sub-agents as it needs in parallel, checks their work, and then hands back one coordinated result. A quick note on how to trigger it. We've heard you loud and clear that just triggering based on the keyword workflow has been a bit ambiguous and it'll over-trigger. And so now we've made the keyword ultra code. So instead of saying using kind of a workflow, actually, you can still say use a workflow for this, and it'll work if it's an explicit trigger, but otherwise, ultra code is the reliable way to trigger it. Dynamic workflows means you can stop decomposing tasks yourself. You just describe the outcome, and Claude will figure out the plan. We're really excited to see what you tackle with it. And if you can only try one thing from the session, something that I wasn't able to demo today, you should absolutely try this. It's quite magical. All right. Then I want to go through some recent changelog items. I'm not going to read over every single one of them, but it's here so you can photograph it if you'd like. I just look at this and really think, wow, we have shipped so much in the past few months, and there are many more to come. I'm just going to draw your attention for those of you managing Claude Code for teams or enterprises. We have shipped better Windows support, cloud provider setup, installation improvements, admin settings management, and plugin features. You can, as always, follow along in all of our public changelog, as well as at any time running /release notes directly within the CLI. A few more ways to keep up with what is new: follow Claude Devs on X, read what is new in our docs, and of course, subscribe to our amazing developer newsletter. I'll leave you with one thought here. Every feature I showed today started as someone on the team saying, "This is annoying, let's fix it," or "What does this feature or workflow look like in an AI-first world? How do we revisit this from first principles?" If you feel that way about something in Claude Code today, tell us. That is how the best features get built. We hope you learned something new today, and we'd love to hear what you think. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Charmaine. I'm on the Applied AI team here, and I would love to chat with you after. It is an honor to be here. Enjoy the rest of Code with Claude Tokyo.
Today we're launching Claude Fable 5, the most capable model we've ever released to the public. Fable 5 is a Mythos class model with safeguards that make it ready for general use. We didn't broadly release our previous model with this level of capability because when we finished training and testing it, we saw that the model, Claude Mythos Preview, was finding thousands of cybersecurity vulnerabilities. A model that can find flaws like that can also be used to exploit them. So instead of releasing it, we handed it to the people who protect the world's critical software and put it to work fixing the holes before someone could break through them. It was the right call for the moment, but it was never the goal. We believe powerful AI should be safe and accessible. That's why we went to work on Claude Fable 5.
Every Claude model has safeguards to keep it from doing harm. Fable needed more cautious ones than anything we'd built before. Our safety systems for Fable 5 automatically review requests that touch on high-risk areas like cybersecurity or biology. Those requests are then redirected to Opus 4.8. We do that intentionally so people can continue to benefit from the capabilities of a powerful model like Fable without the cyber and biology risks that come with it. The safeguards are broad today, but we'll keep refining them so that they're better at allowing safe requests.
We built Claude Fable 5 for your most ambitious work. It can stay with a problem far longer than any model before it. It's highly autonomous and can operate for days without intervention. And it's not just coding. It can take on projects in finance, research, economics, law, complicated tasks that used to need constant supervision. So point it at something that matters. What's the problem we'll look back on and wonder why it took so long to solve? We know what Claude Fable 5 can do. The interesting part is what you'll do with it.
this is the system card, and let's go through it in detail. So this is the Claude Fable 5 and Claude Mythos models that we have gone through. The evals, it is state of the art in all of them. Software engineering, knowledge work, memory and long context. You can go through the videos here. This is the protein complexities designed by Mythos 5. They include immune checkpointing, growth factor, and receptor signaling, generation, degeneration, muscle disease, and harder structural targets, novel hypothesis in molecular biology and genomics and alignment, early feedback. This is from various companies. This is Claude Fable's 5 new safeguards. So how they safeguard the biological and specifically cyber defenses and uh, other that are sent to Opus 4.8 right now. And these are the kind of safety classifiers that I'm talking about. They detect potential misuse, including jailbreak attempts, and prevent the main models from responding. And these are the areas that are covered under classifiers: cybersecurity, biology and chemistry, specifically some viruses and other critical elements that could be used by a simple virus, uh, like by fractions of the people who wanna use it for potential damage to the society. And the third is the distillation. Since they have identified large-scale attempts to extract and distill cloud capabilities to train competing models. So this is also kind of stopped. And the new thing is new data retention policy on Fable 5 and Mythos 5 and all future models. They will have 30-day data retention for all the traffic. So if you are facing some sort of prompt injection or prompt steering or any of that stuff, everything will be recorded in great detail. So those kind of privacy protections, including logging of all human accesses in the data, will be there for 30 days. And that will help prevent new jailbreaks and attacks that operate across many requests. So that will be helpful. And this is the trusted program that they are doing in consultation with US government. They are expanding access to Claude Mythos 5 and Fable 2. The pricing is 10 million, $10 per million tokens input and $50 per million output tokens. You can use Claude Fable 5 via the Claude API right now. And it is also available on the Pro Max team and seat-based enterprise plan at no extra cost till June 22nd, and on June 23rd, they will remove Fable 5 from those plans, and you will be able to use it with the usage credits. And beyond that, if they have sufficient capacity, they will restore it at a part of the subscription plan later. That's what they have announced. And we are going through the autonomy based sections of the risk assessment on the system card. Is the novel chemical biological weapons production capabilities that Fable is guarded against. This internal biological risk hu- evaluation, human run, and external by Deloitte. Uh, that is red teaming with the biological defense specialists. So that is what some people are doing here. And the cloth methods 5 snapshots. extended thinking, web search, and research tools were used for those kind of evaluations. And the teaming exercises. Some of the PhD microbiologists and others were introduced. And fed the data and classified them. Without AI strategies tools, it will take around 40 to 95 working days, and with Mythos 5, a 2% team accomplished this in 16 hours. So that's the kind of timelines that we are talking about right now. These are the biological risks, DNA synthesis, some benchmarks and results. This is the long form virology tasks. You can see in the task 1 and task 2, it's like kind of similar. Multimodal virology and DNA synthesis screening. This is the black blocks, RNA sequence design, Sonnet Opus. You can see the scores here, the prediction scores and the design scores. Going to the cyber capabilities. Vulnerabilities, exploitations, for the defensive security purposes. Uh, there are two risk tiers, tier 1 and tier 2. Tier 1 is the model can provide meaningful technical assistance for active cyber operations using known attacking techniques and methodologies. Although some automation is involved, models in this tier are still dependent upon human input to successfully complete large-scale cyber operations. And tier 2, a model can conduct cyber operations completely and autonomously with novel offensive capability development and adaptive persistence. Export Bench is a cybersecurity benchmark for evaluates how far AI models can progress along with software exploitation pipeline. This has 16 measurable capability flags, and each flag spans coverage and crash reproduction through sandbox primitives, arbitrary read writes, control flow hijack, and arbitrary code execution. So this discovered targets uh, 41 recent vulnerabilities in the V8 engine and the JavaScript and WebAssembly engine that powers Chrome. It has mitigations enabled including a V8 heap sandbox, ASLR, and stack canaries. This is the Cyber Gem benchmark. That we have discussed many times before. So this is the target scores right now. Next, moving on to Firefox 147. Yeah, this has been detailed many times before, but you can see the improvements here between Mythos preview and the Mythos 5. Robustness testing. External bug bounty. Internal red teaming. These are the cyber task completion rate under automated red teaming. This is like with respect to the guardrails that they have had, and the Fable 5 fell to 5%. So they have it to work on it to improve it further. And then the additional external testers. Then these are the safeguards and harmlessness. This is the child safety evaluations. A singleton, harmful request, benign request, with the harmless rate and the refusal rate. This is the mental health evaluations, suicide and self-harm. Then the multi-turn evaluations with the appropriate response rate. So these numbers look good. They still have got to improve a lot here, but like this is expected. They haven't been focusing on this side of the evaluations right now. For the suicide and self-harm, it's up to the mark. Then for the disorderly eating, then for the bias and integrity evaluations, not fable 5, refusal, awareness. For the question answering, for the election integrity benchmark, agentic safety, malicious use of agents, malicious use of Claude code, malicious computer use, this is the indirect prompt injection robustness. From the agent red teaming benchmark. So this is what I was talking about. Earlier when I alluded to the how they will be able to find out because they are recording everything for 30 days. And if you have a direct report from them. Plus, there are other ways to have robustness across those attacking surfaces with respect to the hops your prompt takes through the servers. It's all detailed and widely available through the audits and the if you go into detail, if you access the backend servers, so you can directly access which system is trying to uh, insert those prompts into your simple client server communication and which is the culprit. Which attacker or which system is the culprit. And this is it with respect to coding. Mythos 5 has a attack success rate with thinking without thinking in the scenarios. So then we come to the computer use. This is the attack success rate from the shared indirect prompt injection attacks in the computer use environments. Number of views in this post is pretty low right now. Build in public. But anyways, let me continue because people will find this and come back to it later. This is the browser use agent. This is the attack success rate of professional red teamer prompt injection attacks in browser use environments. automated behavioral audit scores, trust and safety, benchmarks. These are the block rates, battery behavior, audit scores, external testing, destructive or reckless action pursuit for the users and goals. Honesty and hallucinations, factual hallucinations and situational hallucinations. So these are the scores there for the factual questions. These are the false premises, factual recall, honesty rate. On the STEM questions, on the mask, model alignment between statements and knowledge, missing context hallucinations, lying about identity, AI identity disclosure, direct queries. The lazy investigation, kind of a thoroughness in which giving a incorrect answer also kind of tests the model. Uh, Overconfidence, CLI command fabrication. The hacking behavior on GUI computer use tasks. There's deployment coding environments with higher risk of grader hacking and low risk of grader hacking. Greater awareness in the internal deployment transcripts. And the lower deployment versus the higher, in the training versus the deployment settings. This is, I wasn't aware of this kind of a communication patterns in coding environment. This is discriminating behavior audits from deployment using measures of evaluation awareness. This is the steered versus unsteered. So misaligned behavior, relationships. Going to go. Will stop my streaming here. And we'll get to it later. Since I have got a meeting coming up, I have got to prepare for that. But this kind of document looks good. The stealth capabilities. I should learn a couple of things from it too. Okay, cool. Guys, bye for